All right, so we are moving on to our next shape. I have my tools here, some compressed charcoal, regular charcoal, a China marker, some vine charcoal, charcoal pencil, handy dandy eraser, and today I'm going to add this ruler here. You can use a regular ruler or any sort of tool that you have that has a straight edge on it here. And this is because we are moving into the cube now, or the square. So as before, always start very loosely, you know, just this idea of a square. I would try to make these lines parallel to the edge of your page here. So this line, just see if you can line it up. Line it up with this side. Line it up with this side, this lower side here. We're making a square. And this is our next shape. And you can make a drawing overlapping some squares. You can play with that square shape, maybe making rectangles. And maybe you're still incorporating some of those, that first shape we did, some circles, maybe some egg shapes. You know, just allow these drawings to develop organically, just playing with them. Playing with your variety of the line, soft, light, delicate, heavier line, thicker line, more weight. Smushing, whooshing around. This is all made with the vine charcoal, so this stuff is just gonna push away or sweep away. And I'm just building up this surface, just making marks. It's good to sort of just to fill the page with some interesting marks and not necessarily just sort of random hectic scribbling, but something a little bit more intentional. It's really like as if you're dancing, you know, creating loops and dips and sort of just connecting with the material. So this is sort of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and start creating this cube again, or this square. Again, aligning or becoming parallel with the edge of the page, just for now. Just to see if you can get it to be parallel. We'll play with sort of turning it around. For an example, this is not parallel to the page. This is sort of diagonal to this page, much different than being parallel with these lines on the edge of the page. All right, so we have our square. Maybe you've taken your ruler here or your straight edge just to give yourself a straighter edge, but I like to take this to help me draw these lines. You see how this is going right through? We want that diagonal to go right through, come out the other side. Here, that diagonal right there. And then that's going to be now our guide. I'm going to come down here and give myself a little line, diagonal line. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so that's our how we're going to develop our cube here. You can see I'm doing this in just a haphazard way, not really thinking about my composition, just throwing down the shapes, these lines, developing this cube. This one is a little less perpendicular. It's got a little quirkiness to it, which is perfectly fine. Quirky is good sometimes in our drawings. All right, so again, we want to imagine, so we start with our square shape. We add these diagonal lines coming off half of it, and then connecting those diagonal lines to create this illusion of a cube, this three-dimensional shape, if you like, if so. Now let's pretend that there's a light source here. Say there's a light source coming from maybe up over here. So that would make this plane, and that's when we start talking about planes in our sort of artwork. This is where something turns or moves away from the light. It helps us create space. So let's pretend that there's some light coming down here this way. So that part of the cube is going to stay light. And then let's say some of this light is coming down, but it's turned away. It's not getting as much light as this first box. So I'm going to go ahead and give this box some tone. And I'm not looking at anything. This is just coming from my mind, just making this up. So now, usually in these planes or these cubes, there's a highlight like that of the circle, the highest, lightest plane. Then there is a medium section. This is, I just use that China marker so that it never really erases. It kind of keeps a waxy texture on the page, which is sort of interesting. So I'm now just manipulating that with the eraser. And then the last plane, the furthest away from the light, would be pretty dark. So I'm going in here with this compressed charcoal. Move that around a bit. So that creates our cube. That's the basis, or the basic sort of foundation of our cube. And we can play with it, make it more of a rectangle if you'd like, just by extending it. But this basic idea of a light, a mid-tone, and a dark tone to create this sense of light. And how does this help us in our drawings? So you can use this idea, these planes, these angles. Up until now, we've been really using some really soft shapes, organic shapes, like the circle. And again, I'm just playing with these shapes that we have introduced into our vocabulary, just to see what happens. There really is no wrong way. I'm just going in now and playing. I'm allowing intuition to come alive in here, bringing back that egg shape. I'm not worried about the light. Maybe I'll go back to that cube and carve out that edge, just to make that kind of interesting. Again, if I'm sticking with a light source, maybe that light is coming from this angle, this side. There's no wrong way. I'm just playing, just playing. Now, if this was the light source, there would maybe be a kind of weird shadow coming off of this thing. If it was on a plane, a flat plane. So I am just playing with this charcoal. Now, what are some of the rules we've already set? If the light plane, it would be slightly lighter over here. Sorry, it would be lighter on the shadow side. Open that up over there. All right, now this is just the basic cube with some light and shadow. Added some other sort of miscellaneous shapes over here, this egg shape, just for the heck of it, so we don't forget about it. Sort of can be a hazy ghost in the background here. But what if I want to incorporate this idea of a cube in another way? Maybe I decide to overlap, create this more rectangular shape. This guy's in the dark. Maybe this side's in the dark, just for the hell of it. I don't know, maybe this is transparent. Maybe we can see part of this cube. So we use those lines to create the illusion that this thing extends, overlaps. So you see, as soon as you start incorporating the cube, we can talk about space a little bit differently, as if there's planes, things in shapes that move away from the light. Sort of an interesting idea. This is over here. Maybe this, we can see this moving over there. Maybe I want to see that line go through that. So you see what I'm doing here is I'm abstracting and playing with that cube shape, opening it up, expanding on it. Again, it doesn't mean we lose some of, maybe there are still some oval or ellipse-like shapes in this drawing. Maybe that could be interesting. Over here, just to open up the space. Play with the space a little bit more. Maybe there's even another square or rectangular shape overlapping. I'm going to make the lines of this guy a little thicker so it feels like it's a little closer to the viewer. I'm going to overlap that. Overlap that. That's kind of, so I'm skewing them. I'm changing up this cube shape. I'm taking the basis of it, the basic idea of it, and then mutating it or transforming it into sort of more of an abstract drawing. Sort of developing interesting shapes. And again, there's no wrong way to do this. We're really playing now. Let's see. Again, maybe there's that ghost of the egg still back there. And I'm just incorporating some planes, some see-through cubes. There's this ominous cube in the background, just sort of back there in the distance. And maybe there's some other marks that I employ that I like, just to make it more interesting and incorporate some of my mark making. Some dashes maybe. This shadow I think I want to be a little bit darker. Back there. Just for fun. No wrong way. Maybe I'll start to talk about if that light is still coming from this angle, maybe I'll open up that a little bit. So I'm getting rid of some of these now. It's sort of triangular shape is coming in, but we're going to wait on that. We're still working on our, and maybe just the cube or the square repeats itself in its flat two-dimensional form. just as an interesting shape, and you can make that as, you can make it as wonky or as real as you'd like. See how I've sort of opened up the wonkiness of it in contrast to what's happening over here. Maybe I'll open that up just to play, just to see what happens. This is ominous here. This line, I want to open that up. Just so it feels like it sits on top of this other stuff. That line's good. It's interesting, and then maybe bring this line back. Maybe it hides behind that square. So just taking your shapes to the next level. Start with that rudimentary square, create a cube, maybe play with a source or sense of light, and then allow it to open up. See if you can have it open up in a new and interesting way, creating a more interesting design that starts to talk about planes. Not like the plane that flies over, but planes where there's a surface of an object and then it turns and moves away from the light. See, this simple idea of this cube can start to add and open up your spaces. Let's see if there's anything else I want to add in here. Thinking about that light, kind of like this light down here. I like that this overlaps. This is a dark shape in here. And then this guy, the shadow shape is interesting. All right, so playing with the cube, I don't know, maybe I'll create this into a cube shape, just sort of coming up off of the page here. It's another rectangular cube shape moving back in space. Sort of like this overlapping, ambiguous, abstract space that I'm creating here with just incorporating this cube, overlapping this idea of the cube, and playing with the source of light. And again, try not to copy this exactly, but take the idea and make it your own. So starting with that cube shape and then just expounding on it, making it more unique and different or interesting. It doesn't even have to be abstract. It can be, you know, a series of cubes stacked on one another. You can play with these more two-dimensional cubes all the way up to these three-dimensional cubes in the space. Let's see, I want to keep this sort of light down here. Light sort of maybe making its way through the picture plane here. Keep that. Don't want to mess with that too much. And this needs a little more light over here. All right, so you can see some interesting things can happen when you start playing with the cube.